Greeting, everyone. This is Al Fadi. I want to welcome you back to a continuation of this, most likely going to be an amazing series with our dear friend, the apostate prophet, known, of course, as AP. You're going to hear me calling him AP during the show. He's with us here to continue our discussions about what we call the Ka'ba problem. Today's show is going to focus on the historicity of the Kaaba and any issues related to that. With that in mind, AP, thank you again for being here with us. I want to welcome you back to our studios.
Thank you so much, Al. I'm really happy to be here again.
Thank you. So what would you like to tell us about the historicity of the Kaaba now?
I want to go right into it. It is, as said last time, the Kaaba is supposed to be, according to the Islamic narrative, a very greatly important place that matters locally and even globally. It is some place that Abraham called the world to. People came from very distant passes, which is why, for a reason, we learn in Muslim tradition and history that Mecca was supposedly a big, large, important center of trade and of religious worship and all that. So what we would expect, therefore, is to find some historical evidence to that. We would expect to find the name of the Kaaba or the name of Mecca play a role in history, in regional history, in global history. Do we find that at all? Well, if we look at maps about the region, we actually have very early maps. We have some maps made by certain figures from the Romans or connected to civilizations in the region. When we look at the maps, we do not find a significant place known as Mecca. If we look at the history of empires and of kingdoms that conquered regions, we do not find that Mecca was a location or that there was a city in that region that was a place of a desire. In history, it is known that big kingdoms and big empires did go for specific locations, for seats, for cities that played great importance, because that meant power. Taking control of a place of trade or of worship means power. And among the many cities of desire that we have in the world, Mecca is definitely not one of them. Mecca is not even known as an insignificant place. If you look at the very recent history before the emergence of Islam, we have some sources which seem to mention something that seems to get close. This is just within the centuries of Islam. We have a mention of a place called Makuraba. Mm-hmm. But the location of Makuraba doesn't seem to properly correspond with the location of Mecca, because if you look at the numbers of how it is described, it seems far off from where Mecca is today. But again, even if it was mentioned even if the name of Mecca was mentioned on some map, that would be all there is to it. It would be just a name. Yeah. We should have much more than that. We should have a place of great significance.
And I want to just add to what you just said, AP, just to emphasize what you just said and even confirm what you said. Indeed, I've done a number of shows with Dr. J. Smith, and believe it or not, recently I did also a number of shows with Dan Gibson. And he did mention, of course, both, obviously, Dr. J. Smith and Dan, that Mecca wasn't even on the map. And in fact, some of the descriptions of Mecca, like Al-Mukarrama, for instance, are applicable to Petra. One can make an argument that it's applicable to Petra, which was more prominent than Mecca itself. So indeed, what you're mentioning here is eye-opening.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. We also have something else, which is we have some reports apparently of descriptions of the regions of Arabia. And what we apparently have is that there is a place that people go to worship. But, that's all we have. And some people actually try to bring that up to say, well, this is obviously referring to Mecca, but how do we get to that conclusion?
Exactly.
I mean, there can be so many places that may be referred to as places of worship in Arabia. In fact, we have an early Muslim source, an early Muslim historical source, which deals with idolatry, with non-Muslim pagan religions, which is known as the Book of Idols. In this Book of Idols, in Arabic known as Kitab al-Asnam, I think. And what we see,
yes.
Asnam, yeah. What we see in this book is that that there are temples throughout Arabia that are mentioned in the time of Islam. Some of them did still exist in the time of Islam and were slowly taken over and eradicated with the spread of Islam. Some of them, some old ones that existed before Islam, long before Islam, are shown there. Some of these places, some of these temples are described as cubes, as a Kaaba. One very significant reference in that book and in other sources as well, and even in Islamic sources, is a cube, a temple, a place of worship mentioned in Yemen. In fact, we even have certain hadiths to this, and in those hadiths it has a name. It is known as Dhul Khalasa, which is supposed to be a temple, a cube that is in Yemen, where people go to worship and where people also go in circles around. In fact, if we look at one certain hadith, we see that Muhammad makes a prophecy where in the future, before the day of judgment, the women of the Daus tribe will, go around Dhul Khalasa while shaking their bottoms. That's how he describes it, which seems very similar to descriptions of what the pre-Islamic pagans would do around the Kaaba in Mecca, for example, according to the Islamic narrations. So, temples, cubes, did exist throughout Arabia. By the way, this Dhul Khalasa in Yemen is also one that Muhammad had destroyed, which is a whole different story. We could extensively just go into that alone. Muhammad rises to power and asks one of his loyal companions and says, "Will you not relieve me from Dhul Khalasa?" And his loyal soldier, fighter, then goes to Yemen and destroys Dhul Khalasa, destroys this Kaaba, which is in Yemen, and according to the hadith, kills everyone who is present there and comes back. And what Muhammad says is, "Thank you, may Allah bless you." So this is how Muhammad deals with this other Kaaba. So what we see from here is that there is a Kaaba which also has a rock, a stone, according to the traditions. And we have such temples all around Arabia. This is of significance. We have temples dedicated to different gods and goddesses in Arabia, which Muhammad destroys throughout his brief history of prophethood. And we even have cubes in different regions. For example, in Iran, we still have a cube that is standing today, which is known as the Kaaba of Zarathustra, which is also in shape quite similar to the Kaaba. It is a cube that was dedicated to Zoroaster in the Zoroastrian religion before Islam in Iran. So we have this practice of such temples, of such cubes throughout these regions, which is why a description of a place of worship, even if it was found in old sources, could be referring to any temple there, and we don't have any significant source which ever points us at any significant temple somewhere in a significant place called Mecca. One final thing that I want to add before we wrap this up, which is we obviously have the history of the Roman Empire and the Persian empires, which fought really hard to gain control over these regions and to take control of anything that is significant in the region. The Romans came down to Arabia, and the Romans never went further than Hegra, which was the last significant place to them which they could take control over. We have the borders end right there. They would only have to go a little bit more to the south to take control of Mecca, but they never did. Why? But the Romans would take anything. Well, because there was nothing of significance down there to take.
That's right. That's right. It would have been, if it was a significant city and they would have noticed that a lot of people are visiting it, they would have taken advantage of that, at least for taxing purposes, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
And so the historicity is completely lacking. We have no historicity to back up the entire Kaaba narrative, the Mecca narrative. What we see is that we only have Islam, which invents this whole history about Mecca and about the Kaaba, seemingly only to make the Islamic religion and the Islamic history justifiable and significant. I would not go as far as to claim that Mecca is entirely fabricated and fake. I would just say that it is either completely fabricated or fake, or the Islamic sources try to justify the Islamic religion by really, unrealistically raising the importance of this place called Mecca.
Right, or at least it's a later development, like the case has been now, or is emergent about many aspects of Islam. So, what are we going to cover next time?
Well, the next time we want to come to a very specific, important aspect of this whole issue, which is Islam's disconnection to Abrahamic religion, and how, if Islam's narrative about the Kaaba is true, the Kaaba should play a big role in Abrahamic religion, but it does not even appear in Abrahamic religion and history.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, AP. Thank you, everyone, for watching. As always, we encourage you to leave us any comments, reach out to us, reach out to AP with any comments or points or even arguments or objections related to this particular topic. Until we meet again next time, everyone have a blessed day. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, Sira International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.